Hello everyone, today we continue to bring you BL drama SaiDakPhaiSi the series. In the last issue, David used marshmallows and a horn to successfully trick his boss into coming home and spending a nice evening together. Although Lowry snuck out in the morning, it didn't stop David from having a good time. So, when it was time to go to work, David arrived carrying the marshmallow that had witnessed everything last night. He was in a good mood, and he sent them to the office as soon as he saw them. And in the office, Lowry and Yuri are confirming their work and both are surprised by David. Lowry was just about to reprimand the other when she saw David pull out the sock that had been left behind by the owner. Lowry had no choice but to stop and quickly took him to his office. David remains true to his mischievous nature and keeps flirting with the boss. Lowry is really very helpless. It seems that this night of passion is a real pain in the ass. Seeing that his boss was about to get angry, David had to tighten up a bit and go back to work first. For Bruce's assignment, Lowry has to lead the team to fuck it. So before the departure, there was a routine meeting to discuss the matter. But when it came time to play the file, the staff was not prepared, so Lowry had to do it himself. But during Lowry's operation, David kept on flirting with the other, and even kissed Lowry quietly. It's so angry that Lowry played the wrong file and lost her face. After the meeting, Lowry again calls the fretful guy in for a private chat. But the angrier Lowry gets, the more aggrieved David seems to be, because Lowry's fierce look is only directed at David. On this day, Hardy comes to check the progress of the painting, and David's work strikes the old man's heart once again. He sees in it a man who seems to make painters fall in love. Lowry was asked how she felt about it, but all she could say was that it looked good. It seems that the secrets of the painting have to be told by the artist himself. The progress and level of the painting satisfied the client, and he left the studio satisfied. Lowry walks him to the door, but as Lowry turns to go back to the house, it suddenly starts to rain. The painter is really romantic and special. He took out the umbrella with colorful graffiti at home and brought Lowry back from the door. Though exaggerated, the rain left to smiling faces. Immediately after, Lowry's group traveled to fuck it. When returning to her room at night, the door to Lowry's room won't open, and David pokes his head out from next door. The two of them are really quarrelsome when they meet. David wants his partner to be gentle with him, but Lowry thinks he is childish. Two people obviously like each other, but every time they make it unclear. The next morning, Lowry calls Noe, but doesn't realize he's already there. Noe knows Lowry very well, and she knows that he is in love when she looks at him. So she advises Lowry to talk to him earlier or else it will be very awkward to work together. Lowry is shocked to think that his relationship with the painter has been discovered. But I didn't expect Noe to say Bruce's name in the next second, which left Lowry completely speechless. And that's when Liam suddenly emerges from the pool, and the pieces really come together. These three come to the set, where the crew is actually filming. Noe mentions something about Bruce, and Liam surprisingly answers the question. And without waiting for Noe to say anything, Liam scrambled to explain. It is clear from this situation that he is weak-minded. On the other hand, David seems to be in harmony with the staff, and Noe can help but compliment him again. And it was Lowry who was the one with the quick explanation and the weak heart. For Noe doesn't realize he's fallen into his wife's pit. At the evening meal, David wanted to offer the first bite of meat to his parents, but they weren't there, so he gave it to the owner. Lowry wanted to refuse, but when she heard that the first bite of meat in the new era was for her wife, she couldn't resist grabbing it and eating it. David snickers in amusement. At night, David doesn't want to sleep alone, so he goes into Lowry's room and holds Lowry's hand and refuses to leave. Lowry tried to resist, but was so compelled by the gentleness of her partner that she actually pulled on the hands. In the middle of the night, Lowry's hand was numb from the pressure, and when she woke up, David suggested that she hold her hand so that her hand wouldn't be numb anymore. Lowry didn't want to, but on this quiet night, he was so compelled by the other's tenderness that he actually took David's hand. The next morning, the sun wakes Lowry up, but he is late. He fires up to make sure the people who are going to pick up Bruce are in place, and orders David to get up and pack quickly as well. David, though outwardly reluctant, dutifully listened to his wife and completed the task on time. Lowry takes David to identify the house where Bruce will be staying, but as soon as David enters, he looks around and breaks the neatness of the room. Lowry was so angry that she couldn't help but yell at him again. But Bruce is arriving soon, and Lowry has to ask David to redecorate the room. Lowry comes downstairs to pick up Bruce. The service at the hotel was also great, but when the waiter brought Bruce and barrel water, David snatched it out of the blue and drank it. This look, the jealousy is still there. The pleasantries don't have to be excessive, and Lowry, seeing that she can't control David, offers to show Bruce the room. But little did he know that a huge shock awaited him ahead. Lowry opens the door to the house, which is vastly different from when he left. David uses toilet paper to turn the room into an artistic haven, but it's a change Lowry doesn't want to see. So even though Bruce and Beryl loved Noe and others and grabbed a photo here, he was still pissed off. While Bruce was changing, he called David out onto the balcony. He warned David again not to take things personally and just do what needs to be done. During Bruce's shoot, everything looked great and turned out great. However, as he stands on his board, a motorboat bursts into the filming waters and hits Bruce. This freaks out the crowd, but David quickly runs into the ocean and saves Bruce. The group rushed him to the hospital, leaving Noe in charge of the aftermath. Liam also stayed on the scene to calm the storm of public opinion. He said on air that Bruce was just bruised and not as bad as it looked. However, after shutting down the broadcast, Liam cried bitterly. In the hospital, Lowry stays by Bruce's side and never lets go. Today's events have left him extremely remorseful and in self-doubt. But that's when Party called, and they were very angry about the day. Even if it was just an accident, Lowry apologizes, but Noe can listen and takes over the phone. After she had taken care of the matter, she checked in with Liam again, and Liam, who had been worried for a long time, finally let go of his heart, finds David in the recliner after Lowry leaves the hospital room. In the face of such a scruffy painter, he finally voiced his doubts about his ego, and even his tears flowed uncontrollably, and David, faced with a sad Lowry, also changed the usual fuss, became gentle, gave each other enough security. Bruce finally woke up and was fortunate to have no complications. This is a relief for everyone, but after getting the news, Lowry still hasn't left. He has something to tell Bruce. So, after everyone left, he finally got up the courage to apologize to Bruce, not only because of this incident, but also because of my own ignorance in the past. Lowry tells Bruce that he was insecure at the time and thought his brother's love was being shared, which is why he was so willful, and Bruce was relieved to hear that, because he never blamed Lowry either. Finally this time, there is such an opportunity for the two to come together, and it was the understanding David who encouraged Lowry to talk about her feelings. But when he hears a reconciled Lowry and Bruce at the door, he sheds a tear and even turns away, because he felt a little redundant. He went back to room 9 sadly, and Liam, who was waiting anxiously at this point, was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief when he got the good news from David. The next morning, Bruce is back at the hotel and everyone is happy to see him, but Liam is preoccupied, and after Noe's excitement, he couldn't help but ask Lowry what happened last night and why David came home alone and depressed. Lowry doesn't know either, so he goes to David's room. David was still in a sad mood, and he couldn't force a smile when he saw his boss coming over, especially after Lowry mentioned Bruce again and again. And Lowry is a bit oblivious to the other's emotions, so they part ways. After Lowry left, David checked his wound again. It turned out that he was also knocked to save Bruce and his sweetheart, and has been concerned about others. This physical pain, coupled with the sadness of the heart, even the strongest person must shed tears, and Lowry is not completely insensitive. He is annoyed in his room. The two are clearly separated by only one wall, yet they seem to be separated by a great distance. By the time Bruce had recovered enough to finish the ill-fated spot, he had finally finished filming, and Lowry and the guys are happy with it, except that he and David are still in the awkward stage. Now that this has been done, Lowry has something else to call a meeting for, and that is David's evaluation meeting. Lowry dinged everyone not to play favorites because of the relationship. But how do you know that colleagues have very good comments about David? Serious, smart, learning ability, and so on series of advantages. He's much more popular than Lowry, the boss, and David, who's waiting outside, is a little nervous, but that's totally not necessary. Okay. He successfully passed all of his co-workers' evaluations and became a full-time employee. So, on this night, David came downstairs to his boss's house in a handsome suit. Lowry is on the phone with Bruce at the moment, and the whole world knows about David's abnormality, except Lowry, who is dumb enough to pretend she doesn't know. The phone call ends and Lowry hears David's doorbell, and he walks helplessly down the stairs, to be taken away by the painter again. David takes Lowry to his favorite restaurant and looks at the owner in front of him. He just hopes that Lowry doesn't pick on him tonight. So, in a harmonious and romantic atmosphere, he picked up his guitar and sang a confessional piece for Lowry. Lowry was also deeply moved by the atmosphere. The song ends and David walks over to wish Lowry a happy birthday. So it's a birthday surprise, but the presents won't arrive until later. The two share a warm dinner before returning to David's home. To make the atmosphere a little more romantic, David found a number of candles, lit the place up, and then wished Lowry a happy birthday once again. Lowry is very touched by this seriousness, but a kiss is still out of the question. Although his boss disagrees, David is not chagrined. Inspiration to paint. To finish the painting of love, David was going to let Lowry rest first, but Lowry wanted to finish with him. And so, late at night, David splashes colors in the front and Lowry dances off in the back. The two witnessed the fulfillment of love with marvelous harmony. When Lowry's head fell on David's shoulder, David whispered to Lowry, "Little fool, my inspiration is you." The next morning, Lowry was able to wake up at David's house with great familiarity and feed the chickens on the way. This image is simply rare. David is shocked and even tries to record it on his cell phone, and Lowry surprisingly agrees. Is this sweet morning the magic of love? On this day, Bruce comes to the office to see Lowry. The two are as harmonious as ever, but then David pushes his way in. He was already not feeling too well when he saw the two of them being intimate, but Bruce is not expected to change his usual understanding and fights against David, even knocking over the small plants prepared by the other side. And Lowry instinctively tries to help Bruce as soon as she sees the situation and both of them are fighting. David was even more chilled by the sight. So, when the boss indifferently told him to get out, he forlornly picked up the gift he had prepared and walked out. He's a mess. After David leaves, Lowry apologizes to Bruce for him, but Bruce says he did it on purpose. The reason for this is that he wants Lowry to be able to face her feelings as well. That said, everyone is at work and the little old man from the A's comes to visit David. He was surprised to see such a liberal painter sitting in an office, but the little old man still prefers David when he is painting. Free and happy, David himself actually prefers the state of painting. But for Lowry, he can also sit in the office. The little old man sees this and makes his own invitation, asking David if he would like to go to Japan with him. Before David can reply, Lowry, who is eavesdropping on the conversation, gets agitated and yells no. David was surprised, but didn't reject it outright. The next three people went to visit the professor's art exhibition. David sees this and can't help but join the creation, and Lowry has her own considerations in mind as she watches her partner's happiness at meeting art. The conflict between the two is not yet over, when a little old man offers to take David to Japan again. Are they really going their separate ways? What will Lowry and David do when faced with career and love? We'll see you on the next program.